Is it working? What's up, potheads and political junkies? You're watching Cannabis Culture News Live. I'm Jeremiah Vandermeer, editor of Cannabis Culture magazine. Had a little trouble there getting the show started there. Not sure exactly what's going on with Livestream, but there's always some fun hiccups with Livestream every week, it seems like. But it's good to be here with you guys. On the show today, it's a big show. We have Bob Erb, who's the marijuana millionaire, the guy who won $25 million in a BC lottery here. And he's a pod activist who has a long history with the BC Marijuana Party, and he's now agreed to pledge $500,000 to match donations to Sensible BC. And he's also given a bunch of other cash away to other groups in Canada, other marijuana activism groups. So we're going to have him on the show to talk about all that stuff. That should be really awesome. Also on the show, Matt Mernagh, the Cannabis Champion of the universe. On the show today, we'll be Skyping in with Matt. He's going to talk about his Supreme Court challenge. He's taking his case to the Supreme Court if he can. He's going to try. So we'll talk to him about all of that stuff. But I need a bong rip. And Marius, what about you? You're not smoking the bong these days, are you? No. That's okay. I understand. I ask you every show anyway for some reason, but it's good to see you guys. It's good to be back. I just haven't had a bong rip for several hours, so it's much needed. Of course, this is Duchess. Nice. All right. That's a good way to get the show started. And Marius, I'll try and roll a joint here with this great... I found some leftover Jack that I had. Yeah. And I also have some PK, I believe, in my bag, so we're going to get high. All right, so first thing I want to do is play a video for you guys before we start getting into the other part of the show. There's a lot going on in the U.S. Of course, people who watch this show know both Colorado and Washington have now legalized at least small amounts of marijuana for possession, and in Colorado you can grow 6 plants. But other states are now wanting to do the same thing. You're seeing politicians come out in many different states, and they are definitely have a bit more courage to come forward on these issues now, it seems like. So that's what I'm really liking, is the way the politicians have paid attention to all this stuff and are now actually like moving forward. A lot of them are seeing that this is a politically expedient issue, and that it might actually be something they can win over voters with. So I wanted to play a clip, if I can find my storyboard here. Sorry about that. I want to play a clip for you guys out of... Where are my clips? Sorry. First one's out of Virginia. Now, this is the Attorney General candidate in Virginia who is saying he wants to fully legalize marijuana. This guy is a candidate for governor in the state, so he's obviously seeing that this is something that voters may get behind. Let's cue this up, and uh-oh, it looks like we froze. What do you see? I have a black screen. Seems okay there? Okay. It's telling me black screen, but we're queuing up and going to the clip here. So if you can see me, if not, check it out. Oh, I can't even queue it up, Marius. Can you queue it up? It's not working for me. Live stream. It's on the bottom and under clips. Yeah, and I also have another video I'm going to play for you guys of coming out of North Carolina. Actually, there's a bill, a medical marijuana bill in North Carolina. So I've got a couple of little videos from individual states. But we're seeing this happening in a lot of different places. Everybody can still see it, they say. It's, yeah, clips from today. That's right, Virginia Attorney General. And that's the first clip. We'll play 2. I'll see you guys on the other side.
Virginia's Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli is raising eyebrows tonight, saying he may support legalizing pot. Ryan Nobles is here with more on what the man who hopes to be Virginia's next governor told a class of college students, some politically aware students, Ryan.
There's no doubt about that, Sabrina. Cuccinelli was speaking to Larry Sabato's political science class at UVA, and he told the students that he was open to the idea of making marijuana legal.
It may have caught the students at the University of Virginia by surprise. The conservative Attorney General, Ken Cuccinelli, opened to the idea of legalizing marijuana. His answer came after a student asked what he thought about the drug being made legal in Colorado and Washington. I don't have a problem with states experimenting with this sort of thing, said Cuccinelli. I think that's the role of states. Larry Sabato, who invited Cuccinelli to speak, couldn't believe what he'd heard.
Frankly, if people hear that whole answer, it may change his image somewhat. It was not stick in the mud, that's for sure. It was suggestive of a willingness to change marijuana policies in Virginia eventually.
While Cuccinelli holds personal conservative convictions on any number of issues, he almost always prefers states to make the final call. Another example? Gay marriage. In 2011, the candidate for governor told me that he's personally opposed to same-sex marriage, but believes, save for a constitutional amendment, it shouldn't be banned by the federal government.
Frankly, I think that it's worth some consideration for the things that aren't reached by the federal Constitution to just leave it to each state.
So in a race where both candidates are well known, it is clear we still have so much to learn.
And Cuccinelli's comments have drawn quite a reaction on the NBC 12 Facebook page, as you might imagine. Tell us what you think about his willingness to consider a legalization of pot by going to facebook.com/NBC12 News. And I have more on this view of states' rights by Cuccinelli and how it's relatively consistent on DecisionVirginia.com. On your side, I'm Ryan Nobles for NBC.
All right, I guess we're back. Yeah, so that's interesting. I don't know, I think we're going to see more of this happening all over the place. And we're already seeing it happen here in Canada as well. Right after Washington and Colorado did that, I think it just opened the floodgates for a lot of these people, and it was finally okay in a lot of politicians' eyes to come forward on this. It's sad that it took that long, and it really took that much. But Marius, do you want to cue up the next one, the North Carolina one? I can't see the studio at all here, so I'm just going to shut all that down. Oh, that's, yeah, right, okay. That's the one. Yeah, this is another one. Did you say South Carolina? Maybe I was saying North Carolina. North Carolina, yeah, I thought it was North Carolina. Okay. All right, check this North Carolina one out, and on the other side we'll have Bob Erb, marijuana millionaire.
Push is on for medical marijuana in North Carolina, and according to a recent poll, there may be support for it. NBC Charlotte reporter Richard Devane spoke with a lawmaker who says it's time.
I was the senior pilot for the 101st Airborne Division when I left. I trained 454 pilots. I was a former airline pilot. I was a former corporate safety director, and I'm a certified safety professional.
This retired soldier also says he breaks the law. Do you have to use marijuana at all?
I use it daily for the last 10 years.
Because he lives in North Carolina. That is against the law, correct?
That is correct.
Perry Park says he hurt his back and spent 2 years in the hospital for treatment. Then, as a last resort, he tried cannabis.
I now suffer no pain. I'm off the sleeping pills, I'm off the narcotics.
He says other people and veterans are in the same battle, using cannabis.
I am for the medical use of cannabis only. I'm not for legalization of drugs.
Park says he hopes a bill by Democratic Representative Kelly Alexander will make the use of cannabis or medical marijuana legal in the state of North Carolina.
This is a strictly medical use bill.
Alexander says he plans to introduce the bill Wednesday, and only doctors would be able to prescribe it. Some say passing the bill would lead to more recreational use, and Republican Senator Bob Rucho is on record saying he won't support the bill until he sees the medicinal value of cannabis. Alexander says the state could also benefit from legalization of medical marijuana.
There are some tax advantages. We could generate somewhere between $60 and $100 million just in taxes alone.
Park says it's time to help those who would rather break the law in the shadows rather than suffer in plain sight.
We're not criminals. We're people who are sick.
Richard Devane, NBC Charlotte. And it's important to know right now there are 18 states, including the District of Columbia, which have medical marijuana laws. In the newsroom, Richard Devane, NBC.
Okay, let him in.
What's up, guys? All right, well, we're back. So yeah, lots of stuff that's exciting happening down in the U.S., and there's more happening in Canada. We're going to get talking about that soon. A lot of new activism is bound to be happening here in Canada over the next little while, thanks in part to my next guest we're bringing on here. Now, this is Bob Erb. We've been talking about him the whole show. $25 million lottery jackpot winner, Bob Erb. Now, Bob is going to tell us about his past with the Marijuana Party here in British Columbia and his work in pot activism. And Bob, good to have you here.
Hey, good afternoon from beautiful Thornhill Terrace, British Columbia.
It's awesome to have you on the show, Bob. I just wanted to say congratulations, man. What a crazy win.
Yeah, pretty awesome. It's mind-boggling, to say the least.
No kidding. So, Bob, I wanted to, well, it's just going to be 4:20 in a second here, so we'll announce that when we do, and I'm going to hit the bong. But, Bob, I wanted you to just tell people about your history as a pot activist before we really get started about the whole big win. You've been, you know...
I think it goes right back to the grassroots of a little farm outside of Little Town, Saskatchewan, Weyburn, Saskatchewan. I grew up in the 50s, and Tommy Douglas was our Baptist minister there in Weyburn, Saskatchewan, and that's so I got, I guess, that grassroots sort of feeling from an early on in life, and it's just carried on through since.
And so you became a pot activist and started signing up with people like Mark Emery and the BC Marijuana Party. Tell people about that.
I started being a pot activist probably about 18 or 20 years before Mark came to BC.
Right.
There was thousands of people like in the 60s and tens of thousands like me in the 70s here, and hundreds of thousands 80s. And I started, you know, just after my first few tokes, and realized what a bunch of bullshit was about.
Uh-oh. Are you still there, Bob? You're breaking up a little bit. We're having trouble hearing you there.
Oh, I'm moving closer. I'm on a portable phone, so I'm closer to the base now, maybe. How's
Okay.
that?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. It might be because it's pretty loud here on this side, too, so...
Did we miss 4:20? It was a few minutes ago.
Yeah, 4:20. It's still on my clock. I still have 4:20 here. So happy 4:20.
My clock's a few minutes fast, so we're doing our thing.
I'm gonna. Are you puffing something there? I'm gonna hit this bong. So Bob, you were saying that you had your first tokes of pot and realized that all the stuff they were telling you about it was bullshit.
Correct.
And that made you want to get into setting the plant free, I guess.
Well, you know, I've worked in construction, first off in logging, and it took me only a short while to realize that logging wasn't for this farm boy. So I was into construction shortly after, in about 1970, and it made, you know, I had crane operators and other heavy equipment operators that smoked pot, and geez, they were, you know, no accidents really. Number one on the job site, you know, it kept them more focused without just, you know, with their peripheral vision, they still knew what was going on. And
Oh, I think we broke up again there, but...
oh, yeah. I haven't moved.
All right, excellent. So now, of course, you have this progressive past. You said Tommy Douglas, you referenced. And so the pot activism thing, now you hooked up with the BC Marijuana Party, and you have actually run for the BC Marijuana Party there in Terrace, and you've also run for a seat for mayor and city council as well, right?
That's correct. When I heard that they were looking for candidates in the 77 ridings in BC, I quickly contacted the appropriate people down in Vancouver at Mark's headquarters and let them know of my availability and that. So it just progressed from there. I went down for the meeting, and I had Mark and Brian come up here, and we had a rally here, and I had a highly successful financial campaign up here, and even had an overflow to send some down to Mark and his BC campaign, and to the local food kitchens too. I was the only candidate up here that donated our surplus to the food kitchens. The other candidates all ended up with zero surplus, miraculously.
Right. So, and of course, this isn't your first foray into philanthropic causes. You've donated cash to the movement before, as you said. And so tell us about the big win now. I mean, this must have come as a shock to you, obviously. $25 million is huge.
Well, no, I've been buying lottery tickets for 43 years, and I firmly believed I was going to win one day. I was getting a little bit impatient that it was taking this long, but when it did happen, you know, I had 40 years of planning what to do with it, and so.
No kidding, and so you were ready to go, basically. And
I for 40 years, everybody that buys a lottery ticket, you know, always makes plans, you know, twice a week for however many years they've been doing it.
No kidding. Now, I actually have a video here I'm going to play. We'll just go to the video and we'll come back and talk more to you here if that's cool with you. Is that all right, Bob? I wanted to play, it's just like a 1-minute clip. This is a CTV video. Marius, do you have the video there? Yeah, maybe throw that one up and we'll come back and talk a little bit more with Bob Erb on the other side.
Hard to forget Bob Erb. Love it. Yeah. When the prolific marijuana enthusiast.
I generally smoke 10 to 15 joints a day and 7 days a week.
Won a $25 million lottery jackpot in November, he vowed.
I'll contribute towards, operating expenses for any groups or political or otherwise that are promoting the legalization of marijuana.
Now he's putting his money where his mouth is.
I think this year I'm probably going to be hitting 500,000. The majority of that going to Sensible BC and Dana Larson.
He's pledged to match all the donations we get over the coming months.
That kind of financial support is a huge boost to Sensible BC, a campaign to decriminalize marijuana through a referendum.
And although we can't fully legalize and regulate as a province, what we can do is we can tell the police to stop spending their time and resources on searching or detaining or arresting people for simple possession of cannabis.
Sensible BC needs 10% of the population to sign up to hold that referendum, a challenge but not an impossibility. Many BC mayors, former attorneys general and prominent doctors are part of a growing chorus calling for changes to marijuana laws. And while the Prime Minister refuses to entertain the idea,
no, it will not happen under our government.
The U.S. is relaxing its hard line toward the green stuff. Possession is now legal in Colorado and Washington State with little interference from the feds. Larson wants us to follow suit.
We had 8 provinces that refused to enforce the long gun registry back in 2003, and at that time attorneys general said that this law was criminalizing otherwise law-abiding citizens, it was costing too much money, and nobody was following it anyways. And all those exact same things apply to the cannabis issues.
The biggest social injustice I've seen in all of my entire lifetime is the criminalization, prohibition of marijuana.
And he's going to keep putting his millions behind his goal of ending that. Penny Dufflaw, CTV News, Vancouver.
We're back already now. Awesome. Okay. So, Bob, yeah, you were going to tell us about the big win. You've been buying lottery tickets for a long time, and you were surprised it took that long. And right away, you said it to the press as well that you were ready to go. And so what you did was you organized a conference of activists from across the country, marijuana activists, and they came to visit you in Terrace. So maybe tell people about what happened there.
Oh, that's correct. I recognized several of the names, that I had met the people down in Vancouver in the 01, and then through the news. So I made contact with several of them, Dana Larson and John Conroy and Dave Meline, and there's a couple, Brian Taylor, Mayor of Grand Forks, and they supplied another cross-section of names, across the rest of Canada, and we wanted to keep it a small, unstructured meeting, so everybody could get to know each other. So we purposely didn't advertise and kept it to about 18 to 20 people from out of town, and then a dozen locals, of various ages and backgrounds. And so we went from there, and it was just a great, enormous success. The first speaker got up to introduce himself and spend a few minutes, and I said, geez, this guy set a real high standard, for the other speakers following. Well, damn, if the next speaker didn't get up, and equally as good, different style of delivery, but just captivating, the other 30 or 40 people in the audience, and it went like that. Each speaker, I go, well, geez, the 2 best speakers must have got up first, but the other 15 just the same, just different ways of delivering it, and everybody in the room was captivated, and it was just thoroughly impressed. Our Robin Austin, he showed up later towards the tail end of Sunday, and Monday he was here for several hours, the NDP provincial fella, and he had commented to it back at the office that, there was pipes and smoke going around and vaporizers, and he didn't know what a vaporizer was before, but now he does. And he said he was only there for a short time, 15, 20 minutes, he said, before I realized I might be the dumbest person in the crowd. As far as, there was PhDs, people working on masters, a couple lawyers, and, some research scientists, just a great group of people, the 420 people, and everyone, was, very well informed, and everybody was impressed. And Keith and Debbie Fagan, 420 activists in Calgary, who are currently organizing not only Alberta but Saskatchewan and Manitoba, they videoed it all, and I have 4 DVDs up here. I'm not real electronic wizard, so I haven't figured out how to put them into. I don't own a DVD.
Well, maybe we...
hopefully you guys will get a copy of this once it's edited.
Right, that's what I was going to say. I'd love to throw that up on Pot TV and make it available for other people to see there as well.
Yeah, everybody will be impressed. Our local MP was, or MLA, I guess it is, the provincial MLA.
Right. And so now, Bob, these people gave presentations to you and sort of told you what they were doing, and they were basically looking for some help with their causes. Is that right? And who were they, and what did they show off to you guys?
Well, they weren't up here with their hands out, but they were certainly here to let everybody know let everybody present know what group, organization, and what their needs were, and nobody left empty-handed. Everybody group represented left with a $10,000 check, and a group from Eastern Canada $20,000, and then Dana, I believe, was a $50,000 towards the $250,000 I have earmarked for the Sensible BC petition happening in, I believe it'll be September, October, November. I'm not sure if it's a 60-day or a 90-day, but Dana will be announcing more throughout the summer.
Right, yeah, and that's what I was hoping to talk about as well, is that your very generous pledge to Sensible BC, as well as the donations that you made directly to the campaign. Sensible BC, of course, for those who don't know, who are watching, probably most of you do, but is Dana Larson and his group's campaign here in British Columbia to decriminalize marijuana, to basically have a ballot initiative, and that's one we all get to vote on, and if it's yes, they'll defund the policing for possession of marijuana and small marijuana crimes. Basically, cops won't be able to enforce the laws based on that. So that campaign's been going strong here for a little bit. Bob, that's great. Now, you also, there was a pledge to match Dana or any donations to the Sensible BC campaign, and you said you'd go up to $500,000.
I want to go back and touch on what you were speaking about briefly of Dana there. I wanted to be sure that everybody was aware that Dana is a federal NDP, was a federal candidate for the NDP, and that party federally supports legalization, decriminalization of marijuana since 1978, and every 4 years since 1978 for 35th year now. They've said if elected government of Canada, they would legalize it. So that's right. Dana's sort of background. He's just not an independent citizen.
No, and Dana actually is the former editor of Cannabis Culture magazine, so he had my job before. He's actually the founding editor with Mark Emery of this original organization, and Dana also ran for the leadership of the BC NDP here in the province. He was running against Adrian Dix and stuff, so he's definitely earned his stripes, and he's also the founder of the Vancouver Seed Bank and the Vancouver Dispensary Society. So yeah, he's been doing a lot of hard work for a long time, and yeah, Sensible BC looks like a really great plan, actually. I hope that it does work. BC is one of the only provinces that can actually have a ballot initiative, so it's something that we should really move forward on. We actually did dig up that some other provinces are able to have ballot initiatives as well. I think we wrongly reported that no other province could do that, but there may be some others on the list. So, but yeah,
I believe, yeah, that I think the same rule applied to alcohol prohibition 80, 90 years ago, that some provinces in their, I guess when they joined Confederation, they had special clauses, because of their different needs in different geographical areas of Canada, and a couple of the provinces, someplace in their constitution or clauses of joining Confederation, is my understanding, that it enabled them to do a referendum, similar to what was just done in I know referendum people wonder what the heck is a referendum, and we had one just recently, a couple years back in BC, where the same thing Dana is doing was done then, to get, I believe it's 10% of the registered voters from the last provincial election onto a petition within, I believe it might be 90 days. In order, they usually throw out half, so we want to get 20% of the registered voters as of this May's election. election onto this referendum petition,
Right.
because they throw out so many, and then of course all British Columbians, or the majority by far, were in favor of getting rid of the HST, and that referendum went to vote the following year because they easily got the signatures necessary, and it was defeated. The HST was out, and the same thing will happen here in British Columbia. The tough job is the hardest is the foot soldiers out there pounding the streets and the doors to get the signatures on the petitions. When that's done, with 73% of British Columbians in favor of legalization, taxation, and regulation of it, it's a no-brainer. It'll win. But still, strange things have happened. But I don't believe we have it on a ballot in 014. It's a winner. It just makes too much sense not to have it on.
No kidding. And I think if we can get it as far as the ballot, we're going to win it for sure. But it is true, that first part where you have to collect the signatures within 90 days, that is the tough part. And here we have to get signatures from every single riding. Now, that's the task. There's 85 ridings, and you need, I think it's 10% from every riding or something. It's definitely...
I believe that. I'm not sure of it, but I think it's something like that 10%.
But not impossible, as you said. The HST, we just had one here, and it was the first one that's ever passed in BC. But the people of BC, it sounds like they're ready to go on these issues. And of course, everybody knows that according to the polls and stuff here in BC, it polls so high. Decriminalization is polling at 70 or 80 or something percent. Is really high. And outright legalization is also high. So yeah, BC is going to do this. But now, again, we have some political stalwarts on this one. I actually have spoken with the Attorney General of the province myself about this issue, and she still says, well, this is a federal issue. Even if the voters vote for that, I'm not so sure that the politicians are going to want to go along with it. But, yeah, Sensible BC definitely seems like a great step forward.
The Union of BC Municipalities narrowly passed the lowest policing priority of possession of marijuana laws. So the Union of BC Municipalities, I just last year had said, hey, we want this deprioritized to the lowest, like jaywalking.
Yeah, that's right. That was great to see all the local mayors and city councilors and stuff get together and talking about actually getting rid of the drug war from the municipal standpoint.
Well, it's a large portion of the municipal budget goes to policing costs, and pot crimes is butter of the RCMP. They can stay dressed up in their suits and do nothing at double time, and then they wonder why we aren't solving these highway murders up here in the north when all these high-paid cops are sitting in court, testifying against law-abiding citizens that are paying taxes and everything else, and are only choosing a safer way to relax after work rather than using alcohol and tobacco. They like to smoke a joint. For this, they're criminalized. Loss of jobs, loss of mortgages, house insurance, fines, legal fees, and freedom. It's a terrible price, for something that majority of British Columbians are in favor, and the taxation is just monumental. There'd be millions of jobs created like they did down in the United States after prohibition of alcohol was repealed. There was millions of jobs in trucking, distilleries, warehousing, bars, all sorts of jobs. The same thing would happen here in British Columbia and Canada. There would be income taxes collected, which would make afford people to buy more infrastructure. Pharmacare would be increased, Medicare, education, all of this without raising existing taxes. The revenue would be from our largest industry.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, the amount of money that can be generated is just colossal. And I mean, it is it's like...
Our pulp mills are starving for fiber, and we have no pulp mills anymore because the fiber was too far away to get, and it was of poor quality. Yet we're one industry north. It's gradually changing with Superport in Rupert expanding and proposed pipeline and some LNG plants, etc. Rio Tinto Elcan's happening, but still, we have agricultural land that could be used for real hemp on the doorsteps of these pulp mills, and it's renewable every year instead of every 70 years like wood fiber. Same thing with the strand board mills. You could be using.
Oh yeah, I know. There's just, I mean, hemp can be used for all kinds of things. There's just so many different uses for this plant. But aside from that, I mean, the criminalization, the amount of people that are actually going to jail, even here in British Columbia, you'd think that because you don't hear about a lot of pot arrests here in BC, that a lot of people aren't going to jail. But, and even in Vancouver, as they said, as we've reported before, only 6 people went to jail in 2011, or 6 people were arrested for marijuana possession in Vancouver. But the rest of British Columbia, the rest are skyrocketing and have gone up over 100% in the last 10 years. And actually, BC has a higher rate than any other province in Canada of arrests for marijuana. So this drug war is continuing, and just because it's not happening in some of the major cities, there are a lot of people in BC getting busted for under an ounce of marijuana. So, yeah.
Vancouver is policed by Vancouver City Police, and I think the majority of the rest of British Columbia you referred to is policed by the RCMP, and they're an egotistical police force. You know, they get 6 months training, a gun, a badge, a set of Hot Wheels, and a bloated sense of self-importance. All of this by the time they're 25. You know, they shouldn't be allowed to carry a gun until they're over 30. How many of these guys shoot unarmed prisoners handcuffed in the bills or in wheelchairs because they felt threatened? Why the hell did they pass any psychology tests and screening to even be allowed onto the force? The RCMP are spread too thin. They're an experts on nothing anymore. You have the CIA that looks after international policing for the United States. You have the FBI that looks after national policing for in the U.S. You have state police looking after the highways and that. You have city cops looking after the city. You don't have the CIA doing all of that or the FBI doing all of that. The RCMP does everything expertly, if you were to believe them.
Yeah, right. Well, we see the results of their expert work all the time in the newspapers, and of course now they're being investigated even more for all of the horrific things that are happening there.
They're certainly, you know, I wish I had something good to say about them, but nothing comes offhand.
No kidding. Well, and that's why we have to, you know, try and move forward and change some of these things. I really like the idea of cutting us off completely from the RCMP when that was being proposed just recently, but I guess our province went ahead and signed on another contract with them for...
Yes, but contracts have been broken anyways, and changed and altered the links and that, but you know, like the RCMP, you know, like they're an international recognized police force, so maybe that's where their duties should lie, and they should really revisit, you know, the mandate of the RCMP. It's not like 150 years ago where you had a national police force that had to go into isolated parts of the Northwest Territories, which encompassed Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and everything, you know, west of Ontario, I believe, or Upper Canada. You know, so it's a big territory, and so yeah, you needed, you know, a uniform that was recognized throughout. But, you know, the policing needs and that have changed, so they have to decide whether they're going to be an international/national force or a regional and municipal force, which is just, you know, spreading the resources way too thin, where they do nothing well anymore.
Well, so Bob, let's talk about this $500,000 of a matching pledge for donations to Sensible BC. That's a huge amount of cash, and if people out there donate to Sensible BC, you're going to match all those donations.
Up to, no, I haven't, I'll give you my perception on having a couple of talks and ideas bashed back with Dana and I asked him on the weekend of this conference here in Terrace a couple of weeks back. I asked him, what was your amount to run a successful campaign? What amount of money did you think you'd need? You know, you must have had a ballpark figure. And he sort of, for a minute or two, and said, oh, 400,000 or 500,000. And I said, well, let's use 500,000. You know, so 500,000 you would have been able to mount an adequate campaign for the Sensible BC. And he, yeah, you know, that's probably would have been a dream amount. And I said, then, realistically, how much did you think that you would to raise, you know, through your fundraising and commitments and all of that? You know, I threw out a few numbers, 50,000, 100,000, 152, and he said, well, 150 to 2. And I said, well, we'll use 200,000. And so 500,000 would have been your dream amount. You only realistically thought you could raise 200,000, so there's a $300,000 shortfall. Well, I'll throw in 250,000 for sure. I'm not going to finance everything, you know, but we'll come up with some ideas. And I believe so far I've given them, and I got a $50,000 check that'll go at by the end of the month, and that'll bring to $120,000, leaving $130,000 out of the 250 that I said, yeah, I would do. Last November, I committed 100,000 only at the start, but then after the meeting, I soon realized 100,000 was inadequate. So I suggest you. I used Jerry Lewis's marathon telethon on TV, where they use a thermometer, and every hour they show how much the donations are coming in, 24-hour period. I suggest format and all the way up April 30th, showing how much come in. Example, if 15,000 come in, I'd match the 15,000. May, whoever 21 come in, I would.
You know what, Bob? For some reason, the phone's breaking up there. We can't hear you properly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of coming and going a little bit there. You sound okay now, though. Maybe give it another try.
Okay, I was just quickly, I used the Jerry Lewis Timmy Marathon on TV, Variety Club, where they have a thermometer showing how much pledges were coming in hourly. I suggested that we use the same format and show a monthly thermometer from April 1st, April 15th up to April 30th, and if it came in at 15,000, well then I would throw in 15,000. If May, same idea, if May 1st every day up to May 31st, if it come in at 21,000, I would match that 21,000, you know, and up to his ideal mark of mark of 150,000. I mean, pardon me, 500,000. You know.
Right.
And my two. Just, you know, like to make it a national, donation sort of thing. Set it up where people can.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we'll have it all set. I'm sure it'll be set up properly in the website. I know that the people that you're working with are good, competent people, so this is going to be.
I myself am not putting 500,000 into Dana Larson's campaign. I have committed a guaranteed 250,000, and on the national front, there's 100,000 guaranteed on the 420. There's a national organization. Plus, so far I was just adding up, and I have already out of the million I had originally had said that I was going to put towards the pot movement. I've up at 600,000 spent, and I had anticipated when I had made that statement a few months was that I would spend 25% of it in the first year, and then 35% in the second year, and the 015, put in the bigger amount, 40%. But second day into the meeting up here, I realized that we couldn't come off walking the first year, trotting the second, and then running the third year. We had to come off the blocks this year at a full run. Hence, I decided, well, I would double up on, and I've already over doubled on it. We need something for 014 and 015, and, we're up at the 600,000. But, with my commitments, including the fall, the rest of Dana and the fall meeting that we're tentatively planning someplace in British Columbia.
Yeah, well, no, I think that's a great idea. It's better to come out of the gates with a lot, because right now seems to be an opportune moment. There's a lot happening down in the U.S. and other places, and with the Sensible BC campaign, it seems like really the right time. So, I mean,
I asked the other 20 people on at the end of day one, which would have been the Saturday. Everybody was flying in on the Friday, but I asked them then. I said tomorrow morning, we'll have everybody tell us what they think are their first three. Number 1, 2, and 3 funding priorities, and everybody the following morning, everybody unanimously, there wasn't even one person that said a second choice was Sensible BC. That was the number one. The people from Ontario, the people from Quebec, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and other parts of BC, from all different groups and organizations, they all agreed that Sensible BC was the single one most important thing at a national level, because the people in other provinces are going to hear that the winds of change are blowing in British Columbia, and they're going to hear about it well before the referendum petition starts. They're going to hear about it months before, not months after the fact. And so the eyes of the nation will be on British Columbia come this fall, and then again next fall when it goes to vote. and that could definitely have big impact on the 2015 election and what sort of platform the other parties will run on, you know, as far as especially the
Right. No, I definitely think we need to encourage all the political parties to really get behind this issue as well. And now that's the other thing. We're only really going with this ballot initiative in this direction because none of the political parties here in the province are willing to put a bill forward to do this. If any of the political parties wanted to, right now, they could just put a bill forward to do the same thing that Dana wants to do and defund federal, you know, basically all of the policing for this, and they haven't done that yet. So maybe when the campaign gets started, maybe somebody from the NDP will come forward and do that here in the province, or maybe one of the other parties. And that could go for other provinces as well. So maybe we need to work on another campaign to try and convince these politicians at the same time to just put the bill forward that does the same thing.
I believe that out of this meeting here that it's pretty much in agreement that there will be an umbrella formed for this group of people that met here and a follow-up unify the land and do a couple public polls and them available showing the...
Oh, you're breaking up again there, Bob. I'm not sure why we're having reception problems here, but it seems like... now, give it another try now. I think every time we just stop, it seems to fix it.
Okay, what I was saying was, out of this meeting up here, we were talking about organization and get public opinion polls on the numbers to the...
No, unfortunately, Bob, you're totally breaking up. We can't hear you there, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that, man. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on. But yeah,
happens.
It does happen. It's the technology these days. But I mean, Terrace, it's an interesting place, and it's cool that you're there working away. Bob, I want to keep in touch with you over the course of the campaign. We didn't really get into the whole 420 thing, and that's the thing I wanted to talk to you about next. We should give it another try here and see if we can. You, at the same time, you're giving some cash to the 420 National 420 campaign across Canada here. And there's some new ideas planned with that. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Well, my idea, I've committed $100,000 a year for 13, 14, and 15 for organizing the 420 events and have a uniform format and have a, you know, I suggested a tent from spokespeople, various organizations. Women's Normal, Stop the Violence, and whatever group that are mobilization. But the camera talk to these people.
Right, and yeah, we're still having some technical difficulties there, Bob. It's just a bad connection, I think.
Okay, well, there's four other people on the National 420 committee, and that's Debbie and Dan Fagan. In one of the seats, and they're from Calgary. Dave Moline from Vancouver. Neve Taparero, I believe his name is from Toronto. That's and Andrea, forget her last name, and she's from Normal Women's in, I believe it's Ottawa. She's and her group. They're the four people organizing 420 events. I believe there's going to be a fifth person from Ontario and a sixth from either Quebec or Maritimes.
Right. That's really awesome. And so the 420, I've talked to Neve actually and David Malmo-Levine both about the national campaign and about the website that's being set up. They're just kind of finalizing the actual URL and the name and the marketing that's going with it. But that should be going very soon. And actually, if people want to get involved, and if there's people out there who want to have a 420 event in your city and get in touch with these guys who are setting up this national campaign, you can contact malmolevine@gmail.com. That's Malmo-Levine, no hyphen, Malmo-Levine, all one word, @gmail.com for now. But that'll all be set up. There's going to be more. There'll be websites and stuff. We'll be talking about this a lot on the show. So we'll keep you guys posted on that as well. Yeah, it sounds like an exciting thing, Bob, the website. That they really had a sort of grand idea to stream live stuff from 420s all across the country. But we were discussing how the logistics of that would work, and sometimes it's hard to stream with technical difficulties like the ones we have happening here happen there as well.
I'd like to leave two names here in Terrace, businesses that they do my, they're dear friends and with the movement, but they take messages and email, and because I'm not very good on this computer stuff and those cell phones, but it's Deviant Fiber, and they're the hemp store here in Terrace. Deviant, D-E-V-I-A-N-T, Fiber, and the other one is terracedaily.ca. They're our online newspaper, and they have links for me and numerous articles from other activists and medical marijuana issues, and they do our advertising up here too. So keep those two names and IDs in, and you can communicate with them when all of these websites are connected.
Excellent. And people can find out more about the Sensible BC campaign that you guys are working on at sensiblebc.ca. And of course, we'll have lots of information about it on the front page of Cannabis Culture as time goes on here. Bob, thanks so much for everything that you're doing and for all your years of hard work. It's much appreciated, and it's exciting to see this happening at such a pivotal moment, and it's really going to help things a lot, I hope.
Hey, it's great stuff happening early enough where we can make a difference on the Sensible BC. If it had happened, let's say in July of this year, it would have been too late to help the Sensible BC thing. But timing was great.
Yeah, it sure was. Well, thank you very much, Bob, and we'll keep in touch. I'll have you back on the show as soon as we can, for sure.
Hey, look forward to it. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot. All right.
Bye for now.
Yeah, bye now. Thanks, Bob. All right, that was Bob Erb, $25 million lottery jackpot winner. Crazy win. That's fantastic. It really couldn't have happened to a better guy there. Karma looks like it's coming back to us here, so hopefully that pays off. And Sensible BC, you can find out more about Sensible BC, of course, at the website there. You guys know all about it here. I want to play a video before we bring out Cannabis Champion Matt Mernagh, who's in the chat right now, saying that it's not hard to stream from the different places. He said Toronto had awesome internet, it's no problem. Well, here in Vancouver, we have a hard time streaming any internet from our events. Unfortunately, when you get more than 1,000 people in a cell tower zone or something, they seem to shut down completely, and we can't send text messages at 420 and stuff. So yeah, there might be some problems in some places. We have to get a direct line from a hotel, and that's how we broadcast live to you guys from our events from up on the top of one of the hotels there in our rooftop studio. But yeah, Marius, the next video that's there is the one about Latin America from RT. Yeah, I want to play this. I'll just set this up. Of course, we've been following on the show what's happening in Mexico and in Latin America with the drug war. The violence is just overflowing, and now Obama is pledging more cash. There's more stuff going down there. It's going to be they're militarizing it even more. It's just insane, really. They're bringing troops home from other places, but they're amping up the war in Latin America over drugs. So you can find out more about some of the stuff that's happening on the front page of Cannabis Culture right now. There's a few stories about Obama's ramping up of this whole Latin America thing. And check this video out. We'll talk more on the other side.
Well, we don't know if we're winning the war on drugs, but we do know it's expanding. In Latin America, the U.S. military is kicking up combat in the most expensive initiative in the region since the Cold War. Take a look at the numbers. $2.8 billion worth of supplies sold by the U.S. in 2011. There were $510 million in defense contracts over the last decade, $830 million spent toward countering narcotics, and 4,000 U.S. troops are currently in the region. For more on this expanding war on drugs in Latin America, Victor Silverman, history professor at Pomona College, joins us now. Welcome, Victor. So we know that the war on drugs has been going on for decades. How is it growing now?
Well, the problem with understanding the war on drugs growth at present is it centers on the need for the United States to continue to have a presence throughout Latin America, and that is at the base of it. Secondly, there's domestic policy concerns which make it very difficult for the Obama administration to shift its policy. Gil Kurlikowski, the U.S. drug czar, announced famously early on in the Obama administration that the drug war was no more, that the United States did not like that metaphor. However, American drug policy has not shifted really in any significant way in the first Obama administration, or first Obama term, and it doesn't now. And doesn't appear to be shifting now.
Yeah, I mean, does this signal that that is not going to shift anytime soon, not in his second term either?
No, it won't be shifting. And what happens is the location of U.S. military involvement in Latin America shifts. So we previously saw a massive involvement in Colombia through a program called Plan Colombia. Plan Colombia brought billions of dollars of U.S. military aid. American forces, both the military and the DEA, were stationed there and helped train the Colombians and bring them into a very active counter-guerrilla and counter-narcotics program. That shifted the thrust of the drug trafficking trade to Mexico. In turn, the United States launched what was called Plan Mernagh in Mexico, which brought billions of dollars to Mexico, substantial American involvement with the Mexican military. Mexico is now the largest recipient of U.S. military aid in the hemisphere. And that has meant now that the drug trade has shifted to Central America. So we saw last summer U.S. DEA agents involved in violent incidents in Honduras. Honduras is receiving $1.3 billion in new U.S. arms sales in this current year. This is a small country receiving a massive amount of infusion of American arms and weaponry. So what changes in the drug war is not the basic premise that the military and law enforcement are the central way to fight the drug war, but rather the location where it takes place.
Okay, yeah, we are seeing that they're finding this need to expand. And as you had mentioned, and we put the figures up there earlier, billions and billions of dollars spent on this war, billions of dollars more being poured into it. And you have to ask, at what end? What are we accomplishing there?
Well, there is a certain success to the drug war, but it may not necessarily be the success that the government claims it is. While there has been some restriction on the entry into the United States of various drugs, whether it's cocaine or marijuana, particularly from Latin America, the price of drugs, which is probably the best marker on the street of the success or failure of the interdiction strategy of the government, hasn't really shifted significantly. So we're not seeing a big rise in drug prices. What is
drug prices? But what about the actual flow of drugs?
Well, that's what the drug prices tell us that the drug flow is continuing unabated. Right? So that were there success in the drug war, there would be a big increase in drug prices. There hasn't been a big increase in drug prices, which means there hasn't been a successful interdiction. But what's been successful in the drug war is the continuing basis for American military involvement throughout Latin America. Latin America has shifted dramatically to the left. There's more democratic governments, there are more left-wing governments in Latin America over the last 12 years, 15 years. And the drug war provides a basis for the United States to maintain military bases, to maintain troop presences, and to maintain close relationships with Latin American militaries. So in that sense, the drug war is a tremendous success.
I guess it all depends on how you define success then when it comes to the war on drugs. If you're talking about actually stopping this hundreds of billions of dollars, this illegal industry, it hasn't really done that. So I want to point out what the Pentagon is saying when it comes to this war. They say that stopping drug trafficking organizations has become a matter of national security because it spreads corruption, can potentially finance terrorists, but it has been going on for decades. Is it a matter of national security now?
Oh, the reality of the drug trade is that it has enriched some really nasty people There's tremendous violence, particularly in Mexico, where somewhere around 70,000 people have been killed in the current drug war. It's corrupted Latin American institutions. It's corrupted American institutions. There is a real price to the drug war that is being paid by people dying every day, by people suffering from addictions that they're able to feed cheaply without getting the benefit of treatment. So there's many, there really is a crisis of drug use and of a growing drug industry. The problem is that American drug policy has not changed this. It's been the same basic drug policy for decades.
For decades. It's been going on for decades, and it looks like it is not ending anytime soon. Victor, thanks for coming on. That was Victor Silverman, history professor at Pomona College.
Happy to be.
We're back. Cannabis Champion on the Skype screen. Matt Mernagh, star of Pot TV shows like The Mernagh Show and Mernagh, or just Mernagh Grows Marijuana, and Mernagh Grows Marijuana Live. He's got a lot going on. But of course, the most important thing he's got going on is the R.V. Mernagh case that right now is moving forward just out of appeals court, just unfortunately overturned in the appeals court. Judge Taliano's decision about your medical marijuana case, Matt, after you got busted growing on your porch. You've really slugged it out with the government on this one. You had Taliano on your side saying he agreed with you that doctors were gatekeepers, and then these three judges came forward and said they don't agree and that it's all a bunch of, or they pulled a bunch of semantic magic out of it to say Taliano was nuts, basically. But now you're going to take this to the Supreme Court, I guess.
Well, that's what we worked on. I was in court on Tuesday. It's been 2 years since I've been to court. So I was there Tuesday. We announced to the justice that we are seeking leave to appeal. I've been working with Paul Lewin quite a bit since the ruling came out. I guess on Monday, the ruling came out on Friday. On On the Monday, we started getting the funding together to take it for leave to appeal. I've also hired another lawyer named Paul Bernstein. He's the original lawyer on Hitzig. So he also worked with Chris Clay and went to the Supreme Court with Chris Clay's case. So we're bringing him in to help us sort of tweak our case and make it a lot better with Bernstein. I'll probably end up spending about $40,000 to $60,000 should the leave to appeal be accepted. But that's the whole case will now probably come in at about $120,000 that we've gotten in grant money from the Ontario government to do this. So we've been working, getting the grant money together, and just sort of going. We'll find out, I guess. Who knows? Probably in the next 180 days, I would imagine. The clock's ticking on me now.
And so they have to come and basically agree to do this. And what are the precedents in the past on this? Is this the case that'll fly, you think? What are your lawyers saying about that?
Well, you got to be understanding is that only less than 10% of cases go to the Supreme Court of Canada.
That's right.
You're looking at about 6% of cases. We have a few things going on our side. We have the flip-flop in the ruling. So we have one lower, one higher court saying something different. So those two things are different. We also have national significance. We have witnesses from across Canada. We didn't call witnesses just from Toronto or Ontario or in the neighborhood. You know, we found and worked exceedingly hard to get witnesses from, you know, the interior of BC, lower mainland of BC, all the way over into PEI. And that was a massive challenge. I don't think people understand it. I think it was lost on the judges. The onerous task that was put on us. Some people think, oh, I could get 19 witnesses. I think if I asked for witnesses today, I could find witnesses not a problem. I don't need witnesses now. The other issue is, when you did find witnesses that we have, you're looking at writing a 5,000 to 7,000 word affidavit, and we're looking at going into your medical history back 50 when your illness started. So the onerous task that the Court of Appeals seemed to think happened, it just didn't. The Ontario Court of Appeals said it wasn't onerous on me to bring in doctors. It's 100% onerous. It's ridiculous suggestion that doctors willingly come to court. Not even a pot doctor was willing to come to court, and I asked one juror.
Right, I mean, the whole thing, the whole case is about the fact that doctors won't come forward to defend you on this, even though you obviously have a right and you would benefit from marijuana. You know you benefit from marijuana. The evidence is, of course, anecdotal, but how do you, I mean, it's a personal thing. So the idea that that you have to somehow drag a doctor into court when the whole entire case is about the idea that you can't drag a doctor into court, geez, it's a feat of logic just to get there. It's a bizarre paradox. You know, like, I don't know how these judges came up with this crazy ruling. It's really strange.
I think they were stuck and put in a corner that they just didn't want to be in. So they hit us really, really hard. It's been rather humiliating. I know Paul was feeling a bit humiliated. It was just it's been a tough ruling since it came out, and I've been sort of not doing as much media. I know I get requests to do media every day now, and I've been turning most of it down. The St. Catharines Standard went to court with me that day. They've been with me for a while, so it's just a matter of waiting to see what happens. Obviously, what people don't understand, they talk about a retrial. If the Supreme Court says no, I'll be doing jail time for this, probably. Like, we're working very hard to make sure that doesn't happen. You know, I volunteered for my MP, I volunteered for my MPP. So these things are, you know, they're important that I'll be able to get good references anyways.
Yeah, now, Matt, I just wanted to, about the whole court case and about moving forward, like the process, does it go straight away now, just as you guys ask for it, and then all they basically have to do is say, yes, we're going to do this, or is there any other steps towards getting there that are in between this?
Well, they submit, Paul and Paul Bernstein, so the Pauls will submit a letter or a reference to the court. They'll put together a brief. The court reads the brief, and then they say yay or nay.
Right.
Medical marijuana has never been to the Supreme Court of Canada, so that's something that I think gives us a good opportunity, is that MedPot's never been there. Possession of marijuana has been there, so I think they might take a different look at medical marijuana, which they've never ruled on before.
Wow, this is going to be a historic thing one way or another. I mean, I hope they really do accept it. Yeah, and somebody, I'm just looking in the comments here, Bravo420 said they don't have a right anymore. And he was just referencing that in the case when these three judges came back with his ruling, they basically said that the original Parker case, you guys were misinterpreting it, and that maybe other people had misinterpreted it in the past, and that Parker doesn't actually mean that people who would benefit from marijuana have a constitutional right to marijuana. It just means that because there are people out there who would benefit from marijuana, we can't have blanket laws banning marijuana for everybody. That would be unconstitutional. So it seems like splitting hairs there, but wow, what a distinction that actually makes a difference when it comes down to it.
That makes a huge difference, and I think Alan Young at Osgoode Hall used to talk about a right to medical marijuana. I think a lot of people used to talk about a right to medical marijuana. I think you can go online still, and you'll have a MedPot person talk about their right to grow with the new medical marijuana changes. I have a right to grow. It's clearly obvious in Mernagh, they rewrote even Parker. So now that as the leading case, they're saying, no, there is no right to medical marijuana. There is no right to grow pot. These things are pretty serious, and if our community can wrap their heads around it, that says a lot, that what the Conservatives are doing with the medical marijuana program, since you don't have a right to it, it's very frustrating.
Well, yeah, it's very, and I mean, again, it seems like, I think there's been some great stuff written about this by Paul McKeever, actually, who really breaks it down on points out the paradox that of the situation, and that you have this, you have a constitutional right or you don't have a constitutional right, and where does that stem from in the language of this itself or whatever. I mean, it's just a bizarre, I thought of this before when Chris Bennett went to court recently. Chris Bennett, who went to court over the spiritual use of cannabis, and he had a rock solid case. It was absolutely fantastic, and the judge there again came back with another feat of logic and all of these very bizarre sounding rulings. And it seems like they can just do anything they want in our justice system, and it really doesn't matter what the law really says. They just find a way of getting around it semantically or otherwise.
Well, the Mernagh ruling, I mean, the Court of Appeal, when you have the senior judge on the Court of Appeal bench say he learned 2 lessons in writing a dissent which agreed with the court ruling. So he wrote his own dissent because he says he learned 2 lessons from the case. It boggles my mind to think about the rewriting they did of Parker. And it reminds me of the video game when you get to the boss level, Jeremiah.
Yeah, no kidding.
So when you get to that boss, you got to hit a bunch of buttons or whatever. Once you figure out how to beat the boss is really easy, right?
That's right. You have that little secret tick that all the bosses have, the way of getting through.
And that's what the Court of Appeal, I think, did to me. I think they pondered this for 6 months and they went, well, what's the weakness in their argument? And Paul and I knew the weakness from day one. If the Court of Appeal was like, look, we're just going to crush you, tell us what the weakness in your argument is, I would have told them, well, we didn't call a doctor to testify because we didn't want a courtroom full of angry doctors. You know, if your doctor was pissed that, didn't sign your medical marijuana paperwork, what do you think that doctor is going to be like when we bring him into court? They're going to be pissed, right? Pissed. We had one witness that gave in-person testimony on the condition we didn't call his doctor as a witness and we needed the person to testify.
Right. Well, and the other thing is, and I think we mentioned this when you were on the show 2 weeks ago, but if you did manage to find a doctor to come in there and speak on your behalf and say, yes, Matt does need this, then, right there, the judge himself would say, well, there's your doctor, why didn't he sign the form? There you go, so what's your problem? So, I mean, it seems like either way, it's kind of one of those weird catch-22 situations or something, a paradox.
I think it is it's a really big catch-22. I mean, it would have been nice. I think we read in the Toronto Star this week that even the interveners, they feel their submissions were mischaracterized, I guess. And, excuse me, the problem is that we were never allowed to submit to the court suggestions on how to improve the program because it would violate other court rulings. You can't you can't make suggestions that the government should do and then have the court force them to do it. And so I think a doctor list or some of the things that, the submissions, the court just sort of, it baffles me still to think about it. And it gets more baffling every day. But the plan of attack will be to continue to look forward. We're going to make some new submissions. We got our witnesses. We got the case law. So the 2 Pauls will work on that. They have about until April to get our submission in. And then it's probably 3 or 4 months from there.
Right. Well, I wish you the best of luck, Matt. I know it's a tough battle ahead. Now, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. You are actually facing jail time on this one, the possibility of it.
I think people are unaware that, I face a substantial amount of jail time according to the Crown. We're going to work really hard not to have that happen to me, but we're looking probably anywhere between 18 months to 2 years less a day. That's about what the average will try and do. They'll also use mandatory mins, not as a mandatory min because they were not in effect when I was doing the crime, but the mandatory mins will show the judge, this is what the crime is carrying in terms of the sentence. So we're looking at, like I said, 18 months to 2 years less a day. That'll put me in an Ontario jail. It's a provincial jail in the Niagara region. Would be my new home. I wouldn't be able to do any of this. So there's an intense amount of stress about I guess it's like you just try not think about it and try and keep thinking about positive stuff. Right. But yeah, there is a definite possibility of jail time. The legal team are working to ensure that doesn't happen, but it's something I kind of look at as a possibility. I mean, if I was a Crown attorney, I know I'd want to put me in jail.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, you make a lot of noise, and I was going to say, because you do make a lot of noise, Matt, and because you are kind of a flamboyant guy, you get a lot of press, you write for, you know, newspapers and magazines there in Toronto, and you know, you're out there doing a lot of activism work, and I know you told me you're not a pot activist, you're a writer, but you do a lot of work, and so I think people forget that you use cannabis because you have health issues as well, and you're sick doing all this stuff. I mean, you have to get through all that stuff as well. So, I mean, how's your health doing at this point? I wanted to ask you about that as well.
Well, obviously, I'm not happy with the stress, and I intend to take a bunch of time off just to focus on my personal life. I think I'd like to do more stuff in my personal life just to kind of take care of my health. It's a bit of a stressful situation right now, what we're dealing with, and I mean, yeah, I guess, sure, activist, writer is sort of where I'm at. I feel like in terms of, I just get involved and talk, I speak out, and I speak out a little louder than the other person. I have 2 media diplomas, so speaking out to the media makes it, I know how to do these things. Contacting my MPP and MP, it's just a matter of writing a letter, which I'm good at, and not everybody's good at those things. So, but yeah, it does come back to haunt you. I suspect the day I'm sentenced, they'll probably pull some of my YouTube videos and show the judge, oh, look how bad he is. And they really do need a strict, harsh sentence should it go that route because of the media, to show they're very serious about their drug policies, to show that they're very serious about upholding the law. They kind of need to send a message to Canadians that, hey, we're sending a serious message today. Because nothing would send a better message if I got 2 years or even more. I mean, like, there's a serious sentence on the books for this crime. But if I got 2 years less a day, that'd be a big media coup for the Harper government, that's for sure. Because it would show that they're very serious about crime. You know, and I say crime,
Crime. Yeah.
So it could be a very big coup. That said, I mean, the Globe and Mail said last week that I shouldn't be in jail, so we'll see what happens.
That's right. I mean, this has generated a lot of press. And of course, like anything else, Matt, I mean, if you do go to jail, it's like Mark going to jail. They want to throw our leaders in prison because it sends a message to our movement. But with people like you and Mark, that overflows to the mainstream media, and it kind of backfires in a lot of ways. If you go to jail, then there's going to be a whole bunch of more people who find out about you and your cause, and it's going to just spread your message even farther, and it's going to bring more negative attention towards the government. So, you know, even though, you know, again, it's this whole martyrdom idea, you might be part of the slaughter there, but unfortunately, that your legacy moves on, my friend. Your legacy moves on, and we'll be there with you.
Yeah, I accept that, and I feel that the issue is, you bring up Mark. I mean, I think his leadership loss has been huge to our community in ways that I think we haven't really felt or discussed, and I really believe the loss of Mark is really, a lot of us have had to step up, and I just, things would move on without me easily, and that's more than enough. And we had a young man on the Mernagh show, the Incredible Paul. He went to his first rally in Philadelphia because I encouraged him on my Twitter. So if it encourages more people to go out in their community and protest in their community, then yeah, that would be a benefit. But at the same time, I'm not doing what I need to do, and that's right.
We don't want you to go to jail, for God's sake, that's for sure. You'll do a lot more for us out of jail. We like having you around and making the noise you make. So, well, and you know what? We're going to keep, obviously, in touch with you. We had you on the show a couple weeks ago. We'll have you back in a few weeks and see how things are going. But definitely best of luck, Matt. Love you so much, brother.
Appreciate it, Jeremiah. Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Is there anything else you want to say or drop? Like, you got any website, Mernagh.ca?
Yeah, Mernagh.ca is still up and running. My book is hitting the press from Green Candy, and that will be out. Geez, I mean, it's like any book or other creative album or any of those creative projects that just like, oh, it's just not done yet. But
let's talk about the
best
book.
of marijuana strain guide, 150 marijuana strains reviewed, photographed. It's a lot of Canadian weed. Well, it's all Canadian weed. Toronto. I went to Vancouver, bought a lot of weed out in Vancouver when I was there, like variety. So, yeah, that book will be out, and we continue to do what we're doing. Thanks, Jeremiah.
For sure, man. Awesome. That's exciting as well. And yeah, you're doing a lot of stuff online at your website, and of course you can find Matt on Pot TV on Tuesday nights, the Mernagh show, And you're not doing your Thursday show these days, your grow show anymore. But are you bringing that back anytime soon? You do a lot of stuff on YouTube.
Since growing's illegal for me now, so I'm not growing anymore.
Right, of course. You probably shouldn't do that. Right, of course. I forgot that of course, with the appeal, they took your exemption away.
Yeah, they took the exemption away. I'm back to being illegal again. It's been 14 days now of kind of more and more. It gets a little bit of a haze, but I don't know. I get up every day and I get the tasks done that need to get done.
Man, it's so brutal because you use this as your medicine. Now they've taken this away from you. They're denying you the one thing that helps you with your ailments. It's a sick-ass thing. And, of course, now, I mean, you're just going to have to go to the black market to find it. You can't grow it yourself. So it just perpetuates their
Well, I mean, I did testify to grow I've been growing since 1994. And when I went back to St. Catharines for court on Tuesday, I walked by with the first place that I grew pot in 1994, and I shot a video, and the girl came out front and was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I grew marijuana up in the whole top of that loft, 1994. She kind of looked at me. What? I'm like, "Yeah, I also grew down the street." Like all the St. Paul Street I've grown on. So I've always grown illegally, and I'll figure something out.
All right, brother. Well, good luck to you, and of course, we'll be talking soon. I guess that's you can hang out. I'm going to play another video here and take another bong rip. What are you smoking there, Matt? What are you smoking?
I've got some Great God.
Oh, nice. Excellent. And it looks like you had a pipe there that you were huffing on?
Yeah, I got my Peace Summit pipe.
Nice. What kind of pipe is it?
Oh, it was a custom made. I held a pot conference in 2006. And we had a glass blower do a glass demo, and that was their demo.
That's cool. And so now I heard that the Cannabis Champ bong got broken, but it was getting fixed. Is that true?
It's getting fixed.
What happened?
How did the news get out there that quick? I don't tell people that.
I just heard it through the grapevine.
Jesus.
I have sources everywhere.
Apparently.
You're at home, I guess. That's the...
Yeah, the Cannabis Champ bong will get repaired. It's a real simple break. My roommate was crushed.
That's a shame. Did that happen to Vapor Central?
No, it happened at the house.
Oh, at the house. Oh, man. And that was the Cannabis Champ bong that was held captive by the Toronto police for so long.
I know.
Yeah, and for
those... Hasn't been a good year.
Yeah, and, well, there's been good and bad. Because there's been a lot of good out of this year, Matt, and all the stuff that you've been doing. I don't think this court case is all bad, man. Now you have the opportunity to go forward.
Yeah, I'm hoping to. I'm hoping to do a few things. I don't know. Figure a few things out. Goodwin's pretty upset about 420.
Oh, yes, I know the whole 420 issue. Well, we're not going to get into that on the show now, but we'll talk about that soon. And I think that I don't think that anybody should be upset about anything at this point. It's too early. We'll figure all that stuff out.
Neve's done this to us before, though, buddy.
Oh, well, I don't want to. Let's not get into it on the show, Matt. But we will talk about it. And and if it comes to something where it gets bad, then we'll take care of it. You know, nothing. Everything can be fixed. There's nothing is set in stone. But anyways.
Is it busy where you guys are at?
I'm gonna hit this bong. Are you still watching the show, Matt, on the screen?
Yeah, I see on the screen there.
Nice. Excellent. I can see you on my little screen here, just barely. Cool. Well, so Tuesday, I guess, is the next Mernagh show.
Yeah, we're rolling into Tuesday. We should, at some point, we're going to have more porn than ever. I promise people porn, and every week people are like, "You got a porn star coming on?" I'm like, not this week, but we will have more porn on the show.
Well, I noticed the show's getting more popular every week, basically. There's been a lot going on, so...
Yeah, we've been doing really well. It's the Mernagh show is not like your show, which is like marijuana activism, marijuana, like it's very, I guess, marijuana news is, within the community. We're like a weed variety show. Like if you were to have a session with me, these are the things we talk about.
That's right. Yeah, you guys do a lot. You have a lot of different people sitting around chatting, talking about stuff. You cover all topics, not just weed stuff either. It's
no, yeah, we're all over the map.
It's a fun show.
We talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
That's right, and porn stars are often featured, male and female.
Skype in and show us their butts.
That's right.
We've had lots of great guests. We've had
I love that episode, I gotta tell you.
And it's something I really want to start pursuing more and more, is like the Mernagh show, where it's like, 3 hours, we have guests. One of our best segments is our 420 swap. I got the idea from Vancouverite Dave Douglas, who does 420 Flea Market.
Yep.
So we do 420 swap. We're live on the show. Anybody who brings a bud to the front of the stage, I have a tray. People put buds on the tray, and then I work out deals between the people. I'm like, do you two want to trade buds for the buds? And everybody can sort of swap nuggets for nugget.
It's a nug swap.
420 swap. People love it.
That is pretty damn cool. And do you film some of this and play it on the show, or is that during?
It's live to air. Yeah. People come right down front onto the stage. We do it right then and there.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we should do something. You guys are packed there at VC very often. You guys have like 100 people sitting in the damn lounge.
122 people attended the Marijuana show last week.
Fantastic. Well,
and they pay $1 for the privilege, an extra $1.
An extra $1. Wow. Whew. Is that going to you?
$5 to get in, and then an extra $1 goes to the Marijuana show.
And so where does that extra $1 go?
I spend it on groceries every week.
Oh, really? So they're giving you a piece of the door at VC? Wow. Nice. Yeah. Well,
Vapor Central's good. All the comedians get a cut of the door. Yeah, Vapor Central has probably one of the best comedy stages going in the city of Toronto. Most people don't know that.
It's true. I was just tuning in a couple nights ago and watching Mike Rita do his hilarious thing. He's really funny.
Well, Rita just did a tour for Yuck Yucks. A lot of the guys that are on the show have a Yuck Yucks contract that allows them also to perform on the Vapor Central stage. Most Yuck Yucks comedians are not allowed to perform anywhere else, but the Yuck Yucks comedians are allowed to perform at Vapor Central.
Wow.
I understand.
Cool. That's nice. Maybe they're stoners over there, Yuck Yucks.
The comedians on that stage, I mean, you can watch guys like Brian O'Gorman. He just came back from an 8-month or 6-month European tour. We're at some point, I guarantee you, some comedian at Vapor Central will have like some comedy special on the CBC, or we'll all be just sitting around. Remember when that guy used to do pot comedy with us?
Yeah, he's hilarious, man. God, is he ever funny. All those guys, there's a bunch of them. They're all professionals, man. It's so good. Like, I don't know, these guys are great. I'm guaranteed they're going to be on the CBC or somewhere soon. I think, Matt, you and I should have a national radio show. That's what we need to do here. We need to bring out, like, something. I love the radio for some reason. I just want to do, like, a weekly radio show. I think it'd be hilarious.
It would be a good radio show. We'd definitely have to try and be more contrarian.
Well, we would. We could definitely, bring both sides. We could be two hosts from either coast kind of thing.
Well, I like that. I can make bad Vancouver Canuck jokes.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that would be fun, man. It'd be pretty damn hilarious.
But you'd have to era of Pi Domi where you're allowed to drop the gloves and punch people.
See, and you don't have to wear pants on the radio either.
Dude, you'd be surprised, man. News Talk 1010, they now have a webcam in their studio.
So there you have to wear pants, I guess, when you go and do there. I saw your recent News Talk 1010 thing. That was pretty good.
So a lot of these guys, a lot of the radio guys now have to like make sure they're pretty and stuff now. It's weird. It's webcam.
Oh, it's true. Wow. Even radio's changing.
Yeah, I think it's all just going to be webcasts in the future.
Yeah, it seems to be moving that way. When Howard Stern started doing it, everybody just like, or recording the shows or whatever. All radio shows have cameras now. Yeah, cool. Well, and yet you did, I saw, what was the most recent appearance you did there? Wasn't that you and Allison?
I did Square Off twice recently on CHCH. You get, it's kind of neat. I did Square Off with Allison Murden, and I got to go to Queen's Park because they do a satellite feed into Hamilton. So Queen's Park being where the Global Marijuana March is, but it's also, of course, the Ontario Legislature. So just before Christmas, I was able to get a photo of my member of provincial parliament because I was wearing a suit for the Square Off. forget the media thing. Meet my MPP in the hallway of Queen's Park and see him almost drop his. It was just too much. He's like, "How are you here?" I'm like, "I have a visitor pass."
That's hilarious.
So I was able to get a Christmas photo, and then I was recently on Square Off again to talk about the court ruling. But a lot of media I've been turning down. I mean, I didn't do anything. The Vancouver newspapers called, and I just didn't return their calls. And they talked to Dana Larson, and they talked to one of the interveners, the BCLA. So they had a good story. I didn't even have to call because other great activists like Dana Larson and then the BCLA, the reporter in the end didn't really need to speak to me.
Right. Yeah, but so what was the logic behind turning the media request down, though? Before I saw somebody criticize the media turn down.
It's not, well, I mean, one, I just didn't feel up to doing them.
Right.
And I think, even talking about it, people wouldn't know. But I just
Nobody
didn't
can fault
feel
you
like
for that.
talking about being a loser.
You're not a loser, Matt.
And so that's how I felt. I mean, I know media, if they were looking for this story, and everybody did a great story. We got coverage in 70 news outlets. We got editorials in the Globe and Mail. There was an editorial this week from one of the interveners in the Toronto Star. So I think almost by not coming out and talking to the media found stories elsewhere.
Yeah, well, that's true.
And that it shows me a lot. Like I don't need to do media every day. It doesn't, it's not paying me. I did the CBC interview last Friday in the middle of a snowstorm, only because I wanted to go to the CBC building. I've never been there before. So I said, well, I'll come down if you give me a tour of the CBC building.
Well, I think you're right, though. There's only so much you can do, and if you're not feeling up to it, nobody can fault you, I don't think. But
well, I also might say something stupid. No offense. I'll say something stupid to cannabis culture and to our people, but the last thing our people want to see is a stupid comment. And
you say something stupid? Never. I've never heard you say anything stupid.
I'm proud of saying.
Well, and your show that you host for 3 hours every week, you don't ever say anything on that show that.
Oh man, we say some of the stupidest stuff you'll ever hear on web TV. And we pride ourselves on that. We get really, we're getting high and we're riffing on, the mayor Rob Ford had, we in Toronto celebrate Bob Marley's birthday. The mayor did a proclamation.
Right.
So it's stuff like that you can just riff on for hours.
Right. You brought up
Quick question. Does the Vancouver mayor recognize Bob Marley's birthday with Bob Marley Day?
No.
Oh. What's the stonier city then? Bob Marley Day, celebrated by the city of Toronto.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome.
It is. I don't know what it means.
We need Gregor on board for some of this stuff. We want Gregor to come and speak at our event this year at 420 here. And speaking of 420, since you opened the whole can of worms there, and the chat is just going crazy now. They're like, what's going on with 420? Everybody wants to know what we're talking about, of course.
We have 420 at Yonge and Dundas Square. That I can guarantee you.
Right. And so, but we talked about 420 earlier on the show, and we talked about Neve. Bob Erb mentioned Neve, and he mentioned that Neve is helping put together a national campaign for 420, and Bob gave him money to do that, and along with David Malmo-Levine, who's coordinating it from this side. So they are working on something outside of the city of Toronto. They're not talking about organizing anything in Toronto, but they're talking about organizing it in other cities, and maybe some of the cities that have never had it before, and really trying to push a campaign so that some of these cities just start it themselves, and those cities can actually rely on resources.
I can name 5 cities in Ontario that have been doing 420 for years.
Right, now any of those people can actually get resources. They can go to Long and McQuaid or other places, and they'll have a fund set up where they can get audio equipment and other things paid for by Bob Erb. So it sounds like a pretty good thing. But Matt, what your guys' concern was that you thought that Neve was going to come and try and get a permit in Toronto or try and shut down the event in some way, but that's not happening. So I'm not really sure what you guys are upset about. You told me before the show that you're just going to go to Amsterdam instead and not do a 420 in Toronto anymore.
Well, I didn't. If I go to somewhere else and Chris and I go on vacation, you know, okay, what happens if I go to jail for 2 years? Does that mean there's not going to be 420?
Well, maybe somebody else. I mean, there's other people that probably would step
There's
forward.
tons of people in the city of Toronto.
But why you guys do it every year? It sounds like you're just being a little, you know, taking your toys and going home instead of really just working together.
No, we're allowing. Our Toronto Ash Mob says that if any group out there that wants to get Yonge and Dundas Square for 420, they're more than welcome to get a permit. The problem and reason we don't is, you know, we do all the heavy lift. We don't pay ourselves. We don't make any money off it, and we spend a lot of money. So our first issue is that permit. So if some other group wants to come in and get a permit,
well, but nobody's proposing.
That said,
nobody's proposed that at all or said anything about doing that. So I'm not really sure where did that come from.
That's what we're hearing here in Toronto.
Well,
so also hearing is that this national team needs the Toronto Hash Mob to organize 420 in Toronto.
Sorry, say that last part again.
So I heard that people are like, no, we still need you guys to organize something. And we're like, well, why don't you guys, if you're doing a national campaign, why don't you organize one in Toronto too?
Well, it sounds like you don't want somebody to organize it in Toronto, but you also want somebody to organize it in Toronto. Is it just that you're upset that you didn't get any of the money that Bob is giving out?
Well, we don't need to. We don't. Our day will continue to go on.
Right, but I mean,
continue to do 420. I mean, Chris is like, oh well, you know, if they want to do 420 and tell us how to do it. I mean, we wouldn't be part of any national team.
Well,
I mean,
you can be
we
part
don't
of.
Really need to be part of. You know, we'd love to be part of a national team, but we don't need the money, and we don't. I'm at the age I don't need someone to tell me how to protest.
I'm not really sure what it is you are wanting or upset about then, because it sounds like everything's okay and that you guys are going to have your 420 and it's not a problem. But you know, here's the thing.
Well, we're not going to allow people from Vancouver to tell us how to protest in Toronto. I can guarantee you that.
Well, why would it? Who from Vancouver is telling you that? Is it what you talking about? Hearing. Me? I'm trying to tell you how to do your protest? No, I'm not trying to tell you.
It's not you, Jeremiah. You know that.
Right. Well, I don't think that anybody's
trying to... But let's go back to the first issue, and I think a lot of people need to be aware of, is getting permits. Vancouver people definitely get a permit.
No, we don't.
We're opposed to that simply because we'll get a permit when pot's legal. We're protesters.
We never ever get permits.
We have the equipment. Specifically, you can start getting dicked around the moment you start asking for a permit at Yonge and Dundas Square. They'll start moving the date like they just did for the Global Marijuana March. It's no longer in the first Saturday of the month like where all the other Global Marijuana Marches happen. The city moved their event to the following weekend.
Where did permits come from?
So the moment you go down that route to get a permit is it's a challenge. We've also had a lot of issues with the square. I was arrested there this summer for possession of marijuana when I shouldn't have been. I was also charged with 1 count of failure to comply, which is the exact charge I've been looking to get for the last 5 fucking years at that square, is a failure to comply trespass. So the idea being is that I want to challenge that whole area. The area at Yonge and Dundas Square is a 3P, which is it's a private partner, it's a public-private partnership. So there's a lot that's going on down there.
That's true, and I don't think you should get a permit, and I don't think anybody proposed anybody getting a permit. I talked to Neve before the show. He said there's no way he's even having anything to do with the Toronto thing, doesn't want to get a permit. So, and also, you mentioned that Vancouver people get permits. Matt, we've never ever had a permit in Vancouver. You and I have had this conversation several times on the air and other places. We've never had a permit in Vancouver for anything that we do. We do it, we have 15 to 20,000 people there. We don't have a permit. We have a stage set up, we have a sound system. We bump it so loud. We take 2 streets over.
So you take your whole stages set up illegally?
Well, it's not illegal. We just do it as a protest. Nobody stops us and everybody allows us to do it. The cops work with us. We talk to the city and they say, sure, do whatever you want. We'll help you shut down the streets when you need us to. And so we don't have any permits. We have a good relationship with the city. But yeah, we've never had one. You and I have talked about this before.
Are you sure you've never got... So you're allowed to set up...
Believe me, I know what I'm talking about on this one, Matt. I definitely know.
So you're allowed to set up an illegal stage in Vancouver?
It's not illegal, it's a protest. It's not illegal because it's a protest. as Marius just chimed in over there.
Sure it is. If I were to go to Vancouver tomorrow as a rave DJ and say I'm a rave DJ protest, I got 2 turntables and a microphone. I can set up a stage.
Yeah, I think you probably should do that. And I think that Gregor, who is also a DJ, he'd probably be like, all right, that's the mayor. He'd probably say kudos, and the cops would help you block the streets off, probably.
It's fascinating because the city of Toronto requests permits for just about everything.
Yeah, well, obviously we're in 2 different situations here.
Yeah, our city's a little larger.
Yeah, and you guys have a lot of business interests in that main square where you happen to do your protest. Where we do our protest at the Vancouver Art Gallery, there aren't big, huge advertisements for those products hanging above, you know, where the cameras are and where you see people smoking pot. They probably have a bit of an objection to that happening there and put the political pressure on. Just a guess. I don't really know, but, you know. So, yeah. You guys, obviously, I don't think I would worry too much, Matt, about the whole permit thing, because that seems to be a fantasy that just was generated out of nowhere. But yeah, if that's your only concern, I don't think there's going to be much of a problem. I think that everybody should be able to coexist peacefully and have a national campaign. I think if somebody's handing out some money and wants to do a national campaign, if you guys want to get involved with working with Neve and David Mammal-Levine, who of course is just right here in the other room, I think you probably could at any level take part in that.
Well, they'd have to give us the money.
Well, and maybe that wouldn't be if you want to help out in some way, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. Or in fact, if you would have gone to Bob and actually didn't Bob invite you to go and you just couldn't go, Bob invited you to go and you probably would have got money as well. So I'm just not sure.
But I don't feel that 420 requires money. I don't think it requires that much money to begin with.
Well, other people do think
protest. We have a generator and stuff. It does cost Vapor Central some cash.
Right, so you just said in that sentence there that it doesn't cost money and that it does cost money.
Well, it doesn't cost most people to throw a protest. I don't want to have people like, oh, I need money to throw a protest. Geez, you can make a Facebook event. You don't even need a megaphone if you have powerful lungs. That's free. There's your protest.
It costs money to have a national website with streaming video and the resources set up to have things that they were proposing, like having tents where people can have free hot chocolate or free other things and get information and things like that. You know, this stuff isn't free.
I think you run into a problem in the province of Ontario with permits. I think any city will ask for one the moment you set up a tent.
Well, and then you wouldn't do that and you wouldn't draw on those funds. But, and you know, they're making things available like money at Long and McQuaid, which is an audio store, so that people can get, you know, things to talk louder or whatever. So those are the things that they're trying to help people with. That doesn't seem like a bad thing to me. That seems like a good thing. And as because we help organize, or we pretty much do all the organizing here in Vancouver for the 420 event, we know that it does cost a lot of money, like a heck of a lot of money. It sure does here anyway for everything that we do. So if somebody's willing to help out with that, it seems like rather than scorning them and saying, well, we don't need any of that, I don't know, it just seems like a bad attitude to have, and I'm kind of shocked.
Well, those are the messages I'm getting.
Well, the messages you're getting, I think maybe they don't really sound like they're factually correct, since I've done the groundwork on this one and I've actually talked to everybody personally about it, so I don't know. You tell me, brother. Anyways, I know we're all going to, this will work out for everybody, and we won't even
I've been wanting to go to Amsterdam for a while, so...
Well, have fun in Amsterdam. I'll see you at 420. All right. Well, anyways, see, that's what the chat gets for asking about it. We might as well talk about it rather than trying to keep any secrets around here. Impossible. Never. We wouldn't even bother. It's pointless. We do all our dirty business right on the air at Pot TV. Anyways. All right. Thanks, guys, for watching. And Matt, love you, brother. I don't know, it looks like my screen is totally frozen. Are we frozen over there, Marius? Okay. I can't see anything. I'm going to smoke another bong rip here. And yeah, thanks to everybody who came on the show today. I do have another video to play before the end of the show, or yeah, it's like a longer one, so I'll just play it at the end of the show. You won't see me on the other end of it. But the last video is about this synthetic marijuana that's come up in the news so much these days, that spice or K2 potpourri stuff that you can get in those little packets that says that you're not supposed to consume it, but of course everybody is, because it's sprayed with a synthetic cannabinoid. I've actually tried the stuff myself, didn't have any really negative health effects on me that I know about. I definitely didn't have a liver failure like something that's being reported, acute kidney failure that is, that's being reported in the media. Matt, have you been seeing these fake synthetic? Are you still around there, Matt? Oh, he's not there.
I don't watch anything.
Oh, you're still there. Have you seen the? Have you seen the synthetic pot propaganda on CNN and stuff about a girl had a stroke and a guy's kidney was failing, and my goodness, they're making a big deal about the synthetic pot.
Are they? I haven't watched TV in like 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, it's been a. You know about this stuff though. Have you ever tried that synthetic pot before?
No, I've always had weed, so I don't think I would want to.
Well, and I think you just hit the nail on the head there with the point. If if weed was legal, then we wouldn't need to have these fake legal buds being made that might be hurting people. We're not sure. I don't really know if I believe the CNN stories and all the stuff that's happening, that they're doing all this damage. I mean, it's definitely very possible. Who knows? It's all anecdotal at this stage. But it seems that whenever anything like this happens, the media goes to town with it. They make a lot of big deal about things. It seems like in these particular cases, it could have been other things that may have caused the same effect on them, stress or who knows what, maybe even alcohol or other things. So, you know, who knows? But I'm not saying that it's not the synthetic stuff. Who knows? It might be killer fake weed. But the press always seems to go to town. They said these exact same things about pot back in Anslinger's day and in the Hearst Press days. So who knows? They said it was killing people and, you know, causing them all kinds of crazy damage and stuff, causing them to murder each other and all kinds of things.
Well, maybe I should take some then.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I've tried it before, and it just totally, I didn't even really get high. It kind of, I felt a little funny, but I was already high from smoking weed, so who knows.
It's strange, the chat says 16 by 9 set me up, but I love that 16 by 9 episode.
Oh yeah, 16 by 9, that's...
That was their 1 hour in-depth insight into marijuana.
That's global news.
Yeah.
Right, and that was actually very beautifully filmed. When I watched the clips of it that you guys have playing on Pot TV, they're like, you know, the camera panning by. Did he have like a big crazy contraption?
Oh man, he brought in an HD, they brought the HD cam, they set it up on trolleys. I mean, they did an amazing in-depth piece. And a lot of people are like, oh, they set up you guys. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I knew exactly what they were up to.
Yeah, well, it was kind of, I thought overall there may have been some bit of that setting things up to sort of look in a certain way. But
I think and it goes right back to my first point, is like, how come you didn't want to do all the media this week, in the last week? You have to know when, if it's even going to be bad media, and I'm going to point this out, is that when we talk about Yonge and Dundas Square, is that we had a guy 3 years ago pull out a gun at the rally. It was brutal. Mm-hmm. I can remember this completely. I'll keep the reporter off the record. The Toronto Sun guy comes out. He shot the last couple rallies with me. So I know a lot of these media people when they come out. It's like, oh, there's that guy, there's this person. The Toronto Sun guy said to me, they're sending in a group of guys to come fuck with you. So we had to keep our people away from the media. Well, I tried to, you know, say things like, well, you know, if it wasn't for Prohibition, there wouldn't have been a gun, and recognizing the people they were coming out to cover the Now story were going to have my balls in their hands. You kind of have to understand, media is not a one-way street. There are going to be days when they're going to be very tough on you, and there's going to be days when it's, hey, congratulations, that's really cool. And so I think people get very confused about the role of media. I thought the 16 by 9 piece was excellent. I even thought when the gun was pulled at Yonge and Dundas Square, I thought the media response was fair. I mean, I was compared to, you know, like the Toronto Sun brought up Jane Kriva was shot there. And so these are issues, you know, we're dealing with. Even though they say, hey, this is all the bad things that are happening, they're like, in brackets, one sentence, oh, Mernaugh's a really likable guy. Yeah. So you kind of have to understand where we're coming from when it comes to, well, there's going to be some bad media days and there'll be some good media days.
No, it's very true. You've got to know how to play them as well. And, you know...
You got to roll against those punches.
It's true, and I think you do a really good job of it, Matt. you're kind of a wizard when it comes to playing the media and doing these. And it just the media seems to find you on all these issues. They love you out there in Toronto, and all your hilarity, the arrests, the
I think I'm
most recent arrest.
outspoken and I have a good flair. I'm a little tired tonight. Someone says I have common sense. I'm not sure about that. I'm getting older, so I'm trying to work on these things. But I don't know. We've gotten really savvy in what we're doing, and I know a lot of the Toronto media, and I've made reports with them over the years. So once they kind of see me, like, why is the pot guy at the peace protest? Or, you can often see me. I'm quite proud of some of my going to the Middle East protests for my Palestinian friends and saying, like, yeah, I'm the only honky here. It's kind of, police know everything's under control. A little white guy over there. But that's how it feels. Like, I go to some of these things. Like 2 years ago, I remember taking, I took Eric Compton from the Toronto Hash Mob, and we went down to watch the, I can't remember the event, but they shut down University Avenue in our city, which is right in front of the U.S. consulate for blocks. This group, I believe they were Indonesian, and it was an incredible protest. And we went down just to watch to see how they did it, and they just broke people up into different megaphone groups, and we watched how the police did their rallies. So the more it was the Tamil protest. So thanks, Steeltown. By going to a lot of these different protests, I get a feel for how the police respond, what they're going to do, and how it works, when it's our turn for weed. And I would like to see those groups come to our event.
Right, and the police there, you kind of go back and forth with them on some of these issues. After they arrested you in Yonge and Dundas Square recently, they kidnapped your bong, your Cannabis Champion bong, and they had that for, who knows, what was it, a month or something?
About a month. The Toronto Police and I have a love-hate affair. I mean, there's been times when they've been very, very forthright, very accommodating, and then there's been times when they've arrested me. I mean, the weekend Mark Emery was charged for his extradition hearing, Chris Goodwin and I were in front of the U.S. consulate protesting, and the cops arrested me, and they dragged me down the street in sandals. So, yeah, the top of my toes were ripped to shit. It's just an unbelievable, it's just really unbelievable. The Toronto Police, there are times when it's like, don't fuck with us, we're just not in the mood to be, pushed. And then there's other times where it's like, yeah, we're okay. I mean, I read the Toronto Police recently say, hey, we give people 420 in Toronto. And I'm like, you don't give us 420, we take it from you. That's a big insult too. It's like, what are you talking about? You fucking threaten to arrest me every time.
That's why we don't need a permit.
Starts with, if you don't shut this sound system down, if you don't put that joint away, I'm going to arrest you. So I told Chris just before I started this call, I'm like, man, if I don't have to start 420 like that, that'd be great. If you don't put that shit down, I'm going to arrest you. Because I kind of don't need it in my life.
Well, Matt, do you guys use hug power out there? You know the David Malcolm.
Oh yeah, I mean
philosophy.
Our whole team accepts hug power, and it gets pretty intense. But people need to understand when when you take, and so I'm not setting up for other 420s out there, but we're a 420 smokeout. I encourage people, even if they're just put a sign out and go down to their MP's office with a sign in protest. That'd be great. But our group, we do smokeouts, and yeah, my team knows hug power, or the idea of I'm not going to get arrested alone tonight and spend the night in jail by myself. But I mean, we've come up a few times where it's just been like, okay, they're telling us to turn this down or do this, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting pretty close to being pushed on the line, and the team's like, we'll prepare to keep accommodating ourselves. So I mean, you getting dicked around by the cops is not a fun day.
Definitely not. And it's definitely not for everybody, but for those who do feel the need to and the passion to get out there and fight for this cause, you should, I think, get involved in this national campaign on 420, or at least get out in your town and start a 420, even if you don't get involved in the national campaign.
Well, I think if you do a 420 and you've never done 420 in your town before, I think hooking up with the national campaign is probably the best way to go, because they'll teach you what to do. And I think I already posted, a couple people were asking, the Niagara Falls group was asking for resources, so I already posted that on Malmo Levine's page a couple weeks back. So
there you go.
And BC Freedom's in the chat room saying they're down with sponsoring other people's 420s. So we've always been that way.
Good. Well, there we go. See, we're already agreeing.
Well, we just don't like taking orders from others.
Well, nobody does, really, but I don't think anybody's trying to give
Actually,
anybody else
it's called
orders.
no ruler.
So, yeah. I just think that maybe there's a false perception going on that somebody is doing that. But
well, you know, we don't like working with needs, so that's the issue.
There's probably some personal things here. But anyways, I love you, Matt. It's always good having you on the show. You're always an interesting, to say the least, guest. And everybody can watch the Mernagh Show Tuesday nights on Pot TV. What's the time slot now?
Yeah, we're on at 7:20 Eastern, 4:20 Pacific. Watch us. Like I said, we got porn stars, we got musicians. We take a lot of Skype callers. That's the new thing about the Mernagh Show. We take that from TMZ. We take anybody who wants to Skype the show. We want you to Skype in, but you have to have a point with what we're talking about, the issue. So I've been putting out topic issues, and so we take a lot of Skype calling these days. We do the 420 swap at the mic. We give out bong rips to the crowd, so it should be it's usually a great show.
It usually is. It's always a good show, actually, I think, over there. It's fun at Vapor Central. Everything's fun at Vapor Central. I miss you guys. We'll be out there for both the Global Marijuana March and the TY Expo coming up.
Nice.
So, and Matt, are you coming out to Vancouver anytime soon?
Well, I would like to get to Vancouver. I'm going to start considering some vacation. I got to take some time off. I've been invited to go to the Skunk Jamaica Island Resort if I only pay my airfare. So if anybody wants to give me airfare to Jamaica for the 25th of March to the 31st of March, get in touch with me. I'd really like to go.
Hey, well, you're getting his airfare. You should get mine, too. I'd love to go. Yeah, no, that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun out there.
Didn't get invited.
No, I did get invited. I got invited, but I just don't have the airfare money to go to Jamaica.
I'm asking people right now for my airfare. We're doing a bunch of events. Let's just be sure. Chris is reminding VC Freedom. We do 420. We're doing the April 27th. Chris and I are going to organize something called Free Mark Emery Day. And it's Free Mark Emery Rally. We're going to host in front of the U.S. Consulate. Just, you know, I think we want to bring attention to that issue. So we're going to hold a Free Mark Rally April 27th. I'm going to hold the Global Mernagh March on May 4th, the first Saturday in May in Toronto at Queen's Park, for people that are unaware that the Freedom Festival is not happening until the following weekend. I'll be there to greet them. So we're going to do the Global Mernagh March.
Right. I know there's some weird date situations there. We'll talk about all that. And we'll have information for everybody on the front page of Cannabis Culture about all of those rallies, about the Mernagh Global Mernagh March. I love it.
Global Mernagh March.
I love it.
You can participate in any city that has a Global Marijuana March just by going.
Well, that's not everybody should do a Global Mernagh March in their town, or even just in your house. You should do a Global Mernagh March every day, actually, just around the living room.
Well, we kind of do that.
But you have to be pantsless to do it, because that's just
how Matt does. We still have that rule. No pants. I'm wearing pants in the house.
Are you wearing pants? Yeah, I think we saw you get up and do stuff, so we could verify.
Yeah, I had to get up to grab a eat. I was dying there.
Cool. Well, Matt, love you, brother. We'll talk soon. Thanks again for coming on the show. Big thanks
to Jeremiah. Have a good day.
I will, for sure. We'll talk soon.
Peace.
Peace. And big thanks to Bob Erb for coming on the show. That was fantastic. He's doing lots of good stuff with the millions that he won there. It should be interesting to see what happens with his pledge to Sensible BC to match donations. So if you want to find out more information about that, go to sensiblebc.ca or just keep in touch with Cannabis Culture. Watch this show, go to the front page of Cannabis Culture or pot.tv to find out more about all of this stuff. All right. And thanks to Marius for running the boards. Marius, I guess we're ready to go here. We're going to watch this fake pot CNN thing. You guys can tell me what you think in the chat about this one. They bring in the family of one of the victims of this fake pot stuff. So it's definitely kind of an emotional thing. But this is how CNN's covering it for all you guys one way or another. Anyways, Love you guys, and we'll see you next Friday for sure, and probably before then on some other Pot TV show. Anyways, peace, and smoke pot.
It's often called fake pot and often advertised as being legal. It's sold in stores under names like Spice or K2, but it's not marijuana. It's actually a handful of herbs sprayed with chemicals, and teenagers consider it a cheap way to get high without going in search of real marijuana. But it can also be deadly. Chase Burnett was an honor roll student and a high school soccer player in suburban Atlanta, not far from where we are now. He was found dead in his family's hot tub almost a year ago. A package of synthetic pot was found nearby. Chase was just 16 years old, and his parents, David and Yvette Burnett, join me now. First off, thank you so much for coming in to share this story. I know this is a difficult one, and the reason you're here is so that this doesn't happen to other kids. But first off, can you just tell me a little bit about Chase? What was he like?
Chase was a joy to be around. He would walk in a room and you felt like you've always known him. He made everybody feel comfortable. He would walk in and just have an inner light about him, wanting people to know who he was. And he was so interested in people. He loved people. He lived life with a zest. He lived every day like it was going to be his last. And he had an inner light about him. People were attracted to that. Older peers, younger children. And we know they had an inner light just because of how he lived and the love he shared with his family and his friends. And because he just had that inner light from God within him.
And I know that he was beloved by his friends and people he went to school with and teachers, and it was something that really devastated people when he passed away last March. Did you have any sense, David? Did you know that he was trying this out, this fake pot? Did you even know what it was?
I was not aware that he was trying it out. I was aware of what it was, but I had no idea that he had experimented with it just a handful of times. We found out the day that he passed away that he had experimented with it just a handful of times.
And that was from his friends?
Yes, I had found that out that morning from some of his friends that came over, as well as we had about 10 or so of his friends over a week after he passed away, and I had them all sit down on our couch at our home and asked them to really come clean with what was going on in the community and who was doing it, so that we could nurture them and explain to them that obviously bad choices have deadly consequences.
And what did you find out? That a lot of the kids were doing this? That it wasn't just Chase?
There were several doing it in the community. I can say that. It has since curtailed the activity within the community, within the children. It has stopped. However, there's a little bit of a misnomer that Chase drowned in a hot tub.
Sure.
Obviously, we found him in a hot tub. That was part of the, it was on the autopsy report, his death certificate. But what killed Chase was the synthetic cannabinoid poisoning, their marijuana. The chemicals that were sprayed onto the leaves shut his lungs down. He suffered a violent death. He asphyxiated and suffocated, and he obviously became unconscious, and I found him in the hot tub that Sunday morning, March 4th.
Something that was legal, allegedly, that he had purchased. Did you have a sense, Yvette, after talking to some of his friends, that he had any sense of the dangers of this?
Oh, no. None of the kids did. Especially Chase. He loved life too much. He would have never, ever done anything that would have harmed himself, knowing how much grief it put his family through and his friends through. Never.
They just were being experimental, as some teens are. That's the impression you got?
Mm-hmm.
How you're here because this has become a mission for you, right? Mm-hmm. To try to make sure that other kids don't follow in Chase's footsteps. Why is this so important to you?
Well, for us, just the heartache, your heart's just ripped into. We don't want this pain to affect other families. It's a senseless. It's a senseless death. A child, teenagers walk into a store thinking it's legal, thinking it's not going to hurt them. They purchase something that should never be sold. And we just don't want the pain of what we've gone through to affect other families. We have peace and strength from God, and we have that peace in our hearts, and we have the joy because we do know where our son is, where he will live forever. But it's just, every day it lives with us for the rest of our life, that we don't get him back.
What can you say to other parents so that they aren't in your shoes, so that they don't lose a child with so much promise?
Well, that is the reason we're here. The reason from the moment that our son, we knew that he passed away that morning when the medics came and covered him up and told us that he had passed away. We had a sense of peace about us. Both of us did, because we know where his soul was, as well as Yvette and I. We know that we'll see him again. We have that heavenly hope. But when they said he was passed, I instinctively told myself, this is wrong, wrong, wrong. You cannot walk into a convenience store in this country as a teenager or a young adult or an adult, purchase a product, obviously, to get high, and then your lungs shut down and you suffocate. It is wrong in a purest form. It's very frustrating as a parent to know that this is being sold throughout the country. It's not only sold in convenience stores, it's sold in head shops, adult novelty shops, and various other avenues to sell the product, but it is a deadly product.
Part of the problem is there's this loophole where it's kind of sold legally. So knowing that, until you can get to the point where it's not sold, what can you tell parents to be? Part of it's awareness, I'm sure, but also what do they need to talk to their kids about so that they understand the risks? Because you said Chase didn't.
Well, it's talking to your children, your grandchildren, talking to them, saying, have you heard about this stuff? Do you understand? And think about the choices. Get online with them. You know, as parents, as adults, we can understand it, but the kids have to understand it in their hearts, that this is wrong. It can kill you. Yes, children think they're invincible. Teenagers think, yes, right, it can't happen to us. It can happen to you. Look at us. We are a normal family who loved our boys dearly. We talked to them about the stuff like this. Our son made a mistake. He made a bad choice, never ever knowing that this would take his life. So I just ask parents and grandparents, talk about this stuff. Don't shovel it under the rug. If you know, talk to the kids, make sure the kids talk to each other. Do what's right.
Communicate and have an open line of communication about it.
Words out of my mouth. You have to take your head out of the sand. It would be easy to ignore it and just to go away, but we choose not to. We have gone from the first day, the day after our son passed away, we went on all of the local affiliates here in Atlanta and came out and told people what happened. We told them that our son bought it. We assumed he bought it and found out he did. He smoked it and he passed away. And we feel that what we're trying to do with the education and awareness aspect of our mission, we're doing as much as we possibly can to help other families around the country not have to endure the pain and lose somebody that you love dearly.
And let's hope they don't. David and Yvette, thank you so much for sharing this story. We'll be talking more about this, of course. And obviously, if this can happen to someone like Chase, it can happen to other young people. So we appreciate your being here to talk about it. Now, despite its sometimes deadly effects, here in Georgia, the use of the drug has jumped 3,000%. Yes, 3,000%. So next, we'll talk about what law enforcement is doing to keep these synthetic drugs off the streets. We just heard from two parents who saw synthetic pot destroy their son's life. And I'm joined now by two people on the front lines of the fight against synthetic drugs. Nellie Miles and Ken Howards. You both work for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Nellie is the forensic chemistry manager for the GBI. Ken is a GBI agent, and he investigates the distribution and the sale of synthetic drugs. So good to see you both. Thank you for being here to educate us more about this. I actually had not heard of this, but it sounds like, is this right, Ken, that it's an epidemic?
It is. It really has blown up on us here in the metro Atlanta area and around the nation in just the past 4 or 5 years.
We're talking growth of thousands of percent. I mean, this is something that's kind of being thrust to the forefront, particularly here in Atlanta, but this is maybe something that a lot of parents haven't even heard about.
Yes, surprisingly enough, it has kind of flown under the radar. Some of the wholesale manufacturers and distributors have actually done a good job of using smoke and mirrors to conceal their activities and exactly what they were doing. So it took a while for us to catch on, and I think that's probably the reason it's taken a while for parents.
Well, explain this, Nellie. How is it even legal? I mean, and first off, what is it? I Googled pictures of it. Some of it looked like potpourri, some of it's leaves. What is it, and why is it even legal? It doesn't seem like it should be.
Well, what happens is they take these man-made chemicals and then they spray it on the plants, and then these plants that get laced with these chemicals, that's what's smoked. And so typically, traditionally, with drugs like cocaine, methamphetamine, we would outlaw those drugs, and then from a legislative standpoint, you're done. But with these drugs, you can take one drug and reformulate it and change it, and then it's legal. It skirts around the law. So it's science meets the law, and unfortunately, the law seems to be one step behind.
And it might not even be something that's advertised as, oh, this is to smoke, right?
Well, the way it's marketed.
If I'm a teenager, I'm going into a convenience store. Would I hear about it from my friends? Maybe I can get it there.
Exactly. It's marketed as potpourri, incense, but if you go into a convenience store to get it, you know what you're getting into. You want to experiment, but you don't really want to necessarily go to jail because you're trying to skirt around the law there.
So the DEA describes the effects of synthetic pot as this. It produces effects similar to real marijuana. It produces a high similar to marijuana, but its side effects include hallucinations, seizures, and addiction not normally seen in marijuana users. So this is more dangerous than marijuana, and is this what makes it so dangerous, these side effects?
Absolutely. We have seen reports of hallucinations, comas, seizures, increasing your heart rate, your body temperature, kidney failure, and as stated earlier, even the GBI's chief medical examiner, we have confirmed 2 deaths in the state of Georgia from smoking synthetic marijuana.
Ken, if the law can't keep up with this, as Nellie discussed, if the law can't keep up with this, then where do you go from there? Or is it just a matter of time until the law catches up? Can it?
I don't know, because we've identified more than 400 synthetic marijuana compounds that are out there. What we have seen in our investigations is that the majority of the chemicals are purchased from China, and the research chemical supply companies in China keep up with the laws, the changes in the states. So as soon as a couple are banned or outlawed, then there's more being shipped to the wholesale distributors here in the states that have been tweaked to skirt those laws.
So nothing can really be done to shut it down?
Well, it's frustrating. I wouldn't say nothing can be done. We're doing things. We're going after the manufacturers and the wholesalers for violations of laws such as mislabeling, misbranding product. And, of course, we're enforcing the laws that are in place when they do slip up and distribute those that have been banned.
And finally, what can parents do, knowing that there aren't necessarily a lot of resources when it comes to the law at this point? What can parents do to make sure that kids aren't getting a hold of this?
Parents need to be educated about the harmful effects. When I talk to students, lots of times I go to career days and we start talking about forensic science, I noticed that the students know far more about these drugs than the adults. They're telling me things that I have not yet even seen in the lab. And what I tell them is, don't be fooled by the pretty packaging, the labeling. It appeals to the youth, the graphic arts. I also tell them easy access doesn't mean it's good for you. So just because you can get it easily and they think, oh, it must be safe, it wouldn't be sold in a convenience store if it was safe. Don't be fooled by that. These manufacturers and distributors are trying to get rich at your expense. So if you're looking for a way to have fun, experiment, and even maybe feel some sort of void, this is not it. And parents need to know that it's serious. It's not a game.
Nellie Miles and Ken Howard with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, it is just past the bottom of the hour now.